Alright guys, welcome back to F1 News. With the British Grand Prix coming up in 2 weekends time, Mercedes believe they may have a car that has the potential of competing for the victory around Silverstone. Red Bull's Christian Horner believes that could be the case as well, expecting upgrades from Ferrari and Mercedes to take them into a more competitive position. But Ferrari also believe, despite the championship not yet being out of reach, the Red Bull are also looking to bring a rather significant upgrade to Silverstone. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Really helps out the channel. First of all, wanted to mention this, of course, Max Verstappen won the Canadian Grand Prix, pressured very heavily at the end by Carlos Sainz, but seemed to generally have it under control, had better traction really out of turn 10 or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was turn 10, that kind of that tight corner there before the two DRS zones effectively, so generally had better traction out of there, so Sainz could never quite get close enough to take him on the straight despite the DRS advantage. But still, Carlos Sainz said he believes he was the fastest man on the track. Verstappen was maybe kind of surprised at the fact that Ferrari were quite so close to him. I thought that he would effectively just drive away from the field, and in fairness he pretty much did, but the safety car of course helped out Sainz towards the end of the race. Now Bonotto says from the Ferrari side, of course that's now 6 wins in a row for Red Bull, 5 of which have gone to Max Verstappen, of course extending massively his championship advantage. Not over yet by any means, like Max Verstappen himself thought it was over after Australia when what was it, Leclerc had like a 46-point advantage. Now it's a 49-point advantage I think for Verstappen after just 9 races. So things can certainly all change, but if the reliability continues on the trend it currently is, then it is obviously Red Bull's championship to lose. And seemingly they are bringing further upgrades as well. As Mattia Bonotto says from Ferrari, I expect Red Bull at Silverstone will bring a big development. We shall see what they have brought compared to what we will do. So basically saying, okay, yeah, we're bringing something. Silverstone is generally a target for a lot of kind of upgrades, just because likes of Mercedes, Red Bull, like in relatively close proximity, right, and Ferrari as well, just because it's like a local regional race around Europe generally, and of course the British Grand Prix Silverstone is very good for the likes of Mercedes, Red Bull. It makes sense just kind of geographically that it's a good race to kind of bring upgrades and test upgrades, this type of stuff. But I think we've heard some rumours for a little bit of time that Red Bull are planning a kind of a significant development here, right? And pretty much what we heard their development is going to be based around is potentially on weight saving, right? And whether they can effectively do that, that's a kind of big question. But Ferrari also believe they've got upgrades in the pipeline as well. Now, Christian Horner actually said that he's expecting something from the Ferrari guys, but also saying that Mercedes could be a threat there, right? I think we've kind of expected some sort of upgrade for Mercedes as well around this track also. And the fact that James Allison, I believe, was in Montreal is rather interesting, man. Just kind of looking at how things were going, seeing about this kind of concept, how things might potentially work out at Silverstone. The fact that a lot of the new asphalted corners around Montreal were rather good for the Mercedes, and potentially that could, well, I think the resurfacing has been done at Silverstone recently, which might mean there's a bit more bumps on the track there than there would have been otherwise, but should mean the track might, well, be a bit smoother for Mercedes, which should of course suit their car now. Around a corner like Copse, for example, might not be great for them. That's the kind of corner where the car has been struggling, but still, they reckon potentially they can compete for it. Like I'm sure Christian Horner and the Ferrari guys are still kind of concerned as well, because they're within 0.3 of a second a lap right now, the Mercedes guys, on a track like Montreal, which didn't really favour them massively. If their upgrades work, or whatever Mercedes decide to bring in Silverstone, if anything at all, then they could be there or thereabouts. But look, if Red Bull and Ferrari also make upgrades, it's unlikely that Mercedes will be able to challenge for the win, but it would be interesting to see 6 cars competing right to the front of the grid. Hopefully we at least get that at some point this season.
I mean, Mercedes pace at the end of the race there was very strong as well, yeah, and so they could well be a factor at that race. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I'm hearing there's a few upgrades coming maybe on the Ferrari as well for that race, so yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
If we are able to run the car low, then we can be competitive. But I've been, after Barcelona, we've been cheering that we're back in the championship fight, and here we go. So let's see.
No, Charles Leclerc says from the Ferrari side, right, saying that, okay, look, he still believes going into Silverstone that he has a possibility here. Yes, like he'll still have to take at least another engine penalty for the rest of the season. It's going to have to happen. You'd imagine at some point. It's only on the 4th power unit right now. He's going to have to take at least a 5th, right? So like there will be more grid penalties, but look, he's had a decent recovery yesterday. 49 points behind. The title is still within reach, he says. That's 2 wins and it's done. Of course, assuming that Verstappen gets some DNFs, which more than likely, given the fact that Perez DNF, there's a reasonable chance that Verstappen has 2 DNFs from now to the end of the season. So Leclerc just has to finish all the races and pick him an awful lot of points if Verstappen doesn't finish. Leclerc is confident that they can get back to the front of the grid. I think it's kind of interesting because Verstappen, after just 3 races, seemed to kind of be writing it off, saying it was going to take him 45 races to catch up Leclerc. Obviously a rather different story to what's happened here in reality. So maybe Leclerc needs to be a bit more pessimistic like Verstappen was, and then it'll work out for them, who knows. But as Sainz says, I believe still in the title. For me, for Ferrari, and also for Charles. My approach now is to go race by race. If that leads me to fight for the title, that's that's fine. If I can help Ferrari or Charles, I will, but I want to be fast in every single race. I think potentially Montreal could be a bit of a turning point for Sainz just because he looked more competitive. He looked on his game, like, he drove a great race, pushed everything, pushed Verstappen to the limit, which I thought was impressive for him, all things considered. But Mercedes, of course, British-based team pretty much. Hamilton, Russell in the cars, like they're going to try and do as best as they possibly can here at Silverstone. That's what they want to achieve. And as Hamilton says after the race, it's given me a lot of hope. There's more to come from this car, that the potential truly is there if we can get the setup right. So pretty happy with it. But again, getting the setup right is going to be the key thing. Maybe whatever they bring to Silverstone, if anything at all, is going to, well, help them get the setup right, or just make the car faster, full stop in general. Like going from the car is so bad, based on the setup he had on Friday, to getting a third place finish was rather impressive this weekend. And Hamilton around Montreal, Hamilton around Silverstone, certainly drivers to be reckoned with around, pretty much what are two of his favourite circuits on the calendar, right? And even Toto Wolff said after the fact that if they're able to run the car low, then we can be competitive. I think they had to raise the car a bit based on the bouncing they were having around Montreal. If they could lower it, they reckon they pretty much could be on a level playing field with the other guys. Now, whether they can do that successfully around Silverstone, that is another question, but they're kind of quietly confident in Toto Wolff that he might be having a successful British Grand Prix on the horizon. And these were the numbers from the race if you guys didn't see them already, with Hamilton and Russell here, 3-4 tenths back pretty much on the leaders, which isn't bad at all given I think what they were expecting from the race. I thought they were probably thinking that they would be maybe 7 tenths back, 6-7 tenths back in terms of race pace from the leaders. 3-4 tenths back is not as bad as they thought, right? So I'm sure if the upgrades come through for them, they could do something around Silverstone, right? They're confident of it. Seems the other teams are kind of concerned that Mercedes could be back in the fight here, and especially with the quality of the performances that Hamilton started to deliver now the last couple of races, and also George Russell, of course, the consistency of him has been incredible so far this season. Still the only driver to have finished in the top 5 every single race. Like, the last few races have been pretty spectacular. Mr. Saturday has become Mr. Consistency officially now at this one. If he can make it 10 in a row, that'll be impressive. Probably will happen based on the way things are going, but who knows how well DNS might potentially affect the top runners. But also, this is a rather interesting thing as well with George Russell, is that he's the only driver on the grid right now to have gained position every single race. Every time he's qualified, or every single race that wherever he's qualified, he's always made up places, like whether it's just P4 to P3 in Spain, but every single race, and obviously like some of that's been benefited by DNFs, obviously that's how this stuff works. But still, the fact that he's kind of wherever he qualifies, you can probably bank on him to gain at least 1 or 2 places, is that, well, saying pretty impressive, no doubt. This, of course, is the way the championship looks at the present time. So yes, Leclerc is saying it's still in reach, it's still possible. It, of course, most certainly is. Like at this, season swung around very quickly indeed, and probably will do so again at some point or another. But Leclerc is 49 points behind Max Verstappen. That kind of DNF hurt Sergio Perez quite significantly in his potential fight for Verstappen for the championship, which is now looking rather unlikely. George Russell in 4th, not far behind Leclerc, but Sainz is closing in on him. Hamilton just a little bit further back. And in terms of the constructors, Red Bull, Ferrari have a quite substantial lead now. Mercedes, honestly, are still not too far away from Ferrari, right? They could potentially get 2nd place this year's championship if Ferrari continue the bit of the disaster class that they've had the last few races, to be honest. But of course, Red Bull should be, theoretically unassailable here, but it's far from guaranteed at all. And this also, just to mention, the first time this season that Max Verstappen has now led, the statistic for the amount of laps led in 2022. George Russell has 4 laps led, Carlos Sainz 23, Sergio Perez 83, Charles Leclerc 195, and Max Verstappen now after Montreal 231 laps led, taking over the lead in that category. But that's going to do it for this video. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. As always, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.